We believe that every tree has a purpose. It has a spirit side to it. Every flower has a purpose, has a spirit side to it. And so I was chosen a long, long time ago to do this work, but I had to go to the Creator's School of Hard Knocks first in order for me to find out what my purpose was. My first career was working on the NASA project for the Apollo space program. I worked from Apollo 6 through Apollo 13. Then I went to work for a number of corporations. One day I came into work and I sat down in my office and I looked over at this wall and I must have had 30 plaques on that wall. And I says, my God, what are you doing with your life? Is that it? Is it about plaques? So I went to see an elder and he said, you need to go on a vision quest. And so he took me up in the mountains. And it was there during that 4-day process I had the vision of the white bison. By then I had been in recovery myself. At 30 I was drinking, my family life was falling apart. So I made this vow. I said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life taking this recovery message specifically to Native people so they don't lose their families and their children like I did. At one time, our communities were intact, and then due to some of the things that happened as a result of the U.S. military and the government years ago, today is connected to suicides, it's connected to other issues that are currently involved in our Native communities. The mission for White Bison is to have 100 Native communities in healing by the year 2010. If we bring back the cultural knowledge of the old days, that we should be able to take on issues around alcoholism, domestic violence, the problems that we have today. Typically, the human being up to 40 is kind of selfish, but there comes a point when you're not happy anymore unless you are out helping one another. And I believe myself, I had divine intervention from the Creator. God said, I'm going to use this fool. A long time ago, before you were born, the old people told a story about a visit from the wisdom keepers. The wisdom keepers told us the light skins are coming and their numbers would be great. They will bring great destruction and confusion. That we will go through a time of testing. They will bring 4 mind changers to make us forget our ways. The mind changers would be a liquid, a black book, a song, and a card. They will take your land. They will poison the earth. They will bring disease and sickness. They will kill the women and the children. They will destroy our culture. Only our spirituality will be left. After the testing time, a great healing will take place. The eagles will come back. The buffalo will come back. We will come back. The prophecies will come true. We are now in the time of the fulfillment of prophecy. The story that happened has never been told. Now is the time to tell the story.
I remember me and my friend, another girl, well, she was my relative from Cheyenne River. We were in the dormitory and we went out the back door and it was the roof and we didn't realize it was the roof, but we went back in and that night we had they called our names. They called a whole bunch of little girls' names, and so we all got in line, and the sister opened this door, and she took one little girl in there, and pretty soon that little girl was just crying, and she came out, and then the next one, and we realized they were getting whipped in there, and when it was my turn to go up there, and I went in there, and that sister told me that I was on the roof, and I was somewhere I weren't supposed to be, and so they pulled our pants down, and that was our first whipping. The first day I got there, the first night, that was my experience with the first day at boarding school.
I'm the last of the family of 9 children. My oldest brother went to boarding school, never came back. Only his body was brought back. And I had 2 other sisters, later years, lost their lives to alcoholism. I come from a family of alcoholism.
And yes, there was sexual abuse in our time. Yes, there was. But we weren't allowed to talk about it. We were given cod liver oil by the tablespoonful for talking Indian. We were slapped with yardsticks for talking Indian, for whispering, or wanting to go to church. We couldn't have a best friend. They'd break us apart. Like someone said, they got separated because they were too close. And that's the way it was. And that's the way it was in boarding school.
As soon as we got to this school, they cut our braids off. They didn't even have the courtesy to unbraid it. They just chopped them off.
But with the Lakotas, if you cut their hair, it means mourning for them. And for these children, they had to have their hair cut. And it is said that they cried throughout the night over this. That was very smart on the teachers and Pratt in the beginning of the brainwashing that they did to these children. Their whole thing was to totally take away their identity. They changed their names from their native names, which for all of us, it symbolizes our heritage, our pride, our accomplishments. It says who we are and where we stand. And they decided to take all the Indian names away and give them common American names.
What is historical trauma is a combination of immense losses and traumatic events that are perpetrated upon an entire culture. For us, the design of the boarding school system was to remove culture, remove the language, the land, the people, the way of life, the religion, and to destroy the family structure. And so these little children that went to the boarding school, they no longer learned the spirituality, the ceremonies, and the culture, and the values. But what they did learn when they were at these boarding schools is they were beat, and so they learned to be violent to each other. They learned to hurt each other. They took away the language, there were no teachings, and so the sexual abuse that went on in these schools, soap in the mouth when they spoke the language, no ceremonies. So when these young children grew up and they came back home, then what did they bring with them? This is where we saw the first appearance of alcoholism.
If you could introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Kateri Koyas, and I'm from the Mohican Nation, and I'm the director of White Bison's Wellbriety Training Institute.
Sweet. Okay, so if we could just have like an explanation of the organization's goals, of White Bison's goals, and maybe like the mission statement, what you guys kind of try to do.
Well, we're a nonprofit organization, and what we do is we provide culturally based programs and trainings and resources that are geared towards recovery and prevention of alcoholism and substance abuse. We have programs for families, healthy fatherhood, healthy motherhood. We have adult treatment programs, youth prevention and treatment programs, and then we have a program that addresses healing from unresolved grief and traumatic loss. We just recently released a program for re-entry back into the community from incarceration or treatment.
Cool. That's awesome. Okay.
And, our goal is to bring healing to the next 7 generations of Indigenous people.
All right. Okay, now about the, like, okay, so our project is sort of rounded around social justice, and that's sort of like what we've been learning in theology.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like not just like what problems are like face to face, but like going deeper. And so I think that this is a really good organization to kind of like look at deeper into like social justice. So kind of like, so how would we ask this question? A detailed description of social justice issues. Okay, so like what kind of problems do you think are most prevalent like issues faced by your population? How do I word this? That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, one of the things that, of course we have a lot of issues in Native American communities, such as domestic violence, substance abuse, breakdown of the family structure and things like that. What we've been able to find is that we do have a lot of programs that address each of those individual issues, but we're finding through some research and things like that it comes down to the time of the boarding schools.
Right.
So this is when Native American children were forcibly removed from their communities, and they were forced to attend these schools. Their hair was cut, they were given Christian names, they were forbidden to speak their language or to practice any of their cultural traditions. Mm-hmm. And so during this time, we had such a loss of culture, and people didn't learn how, the same teachings that their ancestors had, and we really had a breakdown of the family structure. So what we're finding is that all of the issues that we see, the substance abuse, the violence, those aren't actually the root causes. Mm-hmm. Those are just symptoms of something deeper. And what we consider that deeper root cause to be is the intergenerational trauma.
Okay.
So we have also come out with a program that kind of addresses that, and one of the things that we did back in 2009, we went on a journey all across the United States, and we traveled to about 24 different current and former boarding schools. Mm-hmm. And we had 2 goals with this journey. One was to get testimonials from boarding school survivors and give them an opportunity to tell their story and what happened to them. Not all of their experiences were bad, but the majority of them were, mm-hmm. and they really endured a lot of physical and sexual abuse.
Right.
And some of these people that we got to meet during these journeys, they told their stories for the first time in their whole life. Mm. One of the common themes around that is that they didn't learn how to love. They didn't learn how mm-hmm. to give or receive love. So, mm-hmm. That kind of helped start the cycle of family violence and things like that, because they kind of did to other people what was done mm-hmm. to them. So, the other goal that we had with this journey is called the Wild Variety Journey to Forgiveness. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to spread the message of forgiveness and healing in our communities, and we believe that this is kind of our last test as Native people to get into the healing process, is that we have to be able to forgive.
Okay. All right. So can we have like a explanation of how like people can get involved with the organization, how they can volunteer, like service work and mission trips, stuff like that?
There's a lot of different ways to get involved. I would say one of the most popular ways that people do is they come to our trainings, or they bring our trainings to their communities, and then they learn how to facilitate and implement groups in their community, prison, treatment center, school, mm-hmm. Whatever it is that they work in. They just kind of incorporate our programs into what they're already doing.
Okay.
So that's a way to get involved. We do have national conferences, and we always appreciate having volunteers, so that's a way to get involved. Some people, with whether they have training or not, they like to start groups in their community, such as Medicine Wheel and 12 Steps groups. So they just start meetings in their communities,
Okay.
and that's a great way to
Yeah,
get
that's
involved
awesome.
too.
Okay.